stories of the prophets in the Quran. We see Ibrahim alayhi salam, how he did Dawah. When he killed all of the, well, not killed, they weren't alive, but when he destroyed all of the idols, and he hung the axe on the biggest one, this was Dawah. When Musa went to Fir'aun and told Fir'aun, that I give life, or Allah gives life and death, and Fir'aun said, yeah, I can do that too. And then Musa said, well, okay, my Lord makes the sun rise from the east, why don't you make it rise from the west? All analogies used for Dawah. Number 8, we have 4 more slides and we're done. Show the fallacy of other concepts and give the Islamic principle and perspective, proposition. You show the people the fallacy of their way of life. You show the people the problems of their way of life, the fallacy. That your system is not going to work. Reality. The socialistic system that has been established through Marxism and all of this, is it going to work? Can it work? No, it can't work. It's been tried. Communism. Can it work? No, it can't work. It's been tried. Democracy. Their democracy. Can it work? No. And Islam is not a democracy. I don't care how much you try to bend it to be a democracy. It's not a democracy. It can't work. Christianity. Can it work? No, because it doesn't even have any social laws. It doesn't even have any regulations for society. Judaism, can it work? No, because if it would work, then the Jews wouldn't have all the problems they have. Hinduism, can it work? Is it working in India? No. The only thing that can work is Islam. That's it. The only thing that can work is Islam. The only time the world is seeing real peace is when Islam was being implemented in its purest of forms. History proves that for us. The periodicals of history are there for us to go look at. That this was true. And there are like-minded and there are wise-minded non-Muslims who have agreed to the same thing. That when the law of Islam was implemented on the earth, they brought the earth peace and justice. The archbishop of Canterbury over here got himself in a big trouble for saying that. Almost lost his job, probably not his head.
The argument to that would be that if, of course I understand that that's true, but you're saying, but no country is implementing that, so they'll say that if it is, so foolproof, why is no Islamic country implementing Sharia?
Because we have our own problems. We have our own problems. That's why you cannot look to human beings for the answer. This is why you cannot look to us for the answer. I never said Muslims have the answer to your problems. We don't. Islam has the answer to our problems and your problems. Is there a country in the world that's practicing, implementing the law of Allah in its purest form? No. There's not a place. I would be there. Trust me. I would be there. There's not a place. No one is doing it in its perfection. Because if they were, then that would become, in this craziness of this world, it would be utopia for Islam to be practiced in its unlimited form. Are there countries that are trying? Yes. And may Allah Azza wa Jalla aid them and give them victory to establish the Sharia of Allah on their earth, on their land. Please. Ya Allah, please. Help them. Because that will bring the world the much needed peace that it needs. So we show them the fallacy of their way, but then we don't leave them with, you show them the fallacy and then show them the Islamic perspective. If you're talking about the economic system of the world, you show them the fallacy. What is the fallacy of the economic system of the world? Riba. Riba is the fallacy of the economic system of the world. Why is the world in economic crisis? Riba. Why are they losing all this money? Because Allah promised. What does Allah say about riba? I will destroy riba. Allah says, I will destroy usury. Allah is destroying their riba. They're losing all of their interest in derivatives and fake propped up propaganda. Allah is just taking it out from under them. So that's the problem. What is the solution? The Islamic economic system. It's just, it's equitable. It has inalienable rights for every human being. No one gets rich off the back of the poor. It's a just system. So you give them a proposition. Now, how to approach people. Okay, we have 2 more slides. Da'wah through manners and behavior. This means you live your life as a Muslim, unafraid. Unafraid and unapologetic about your deen. Your manners and your behavior, like I said, your akhlaq. You know, I mean, you have to have some wisdom behind it, but at the same time, you have to know what is your right and your proper perspective. Like when it's time to make salah in public. So, did Allah not make the earth a masjid? Did our Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam not say that Allah made this entire earth a place of prayer, and all of it is purification? So why do we need to be worried, oh, I can't pray in this area or that area or whatever? I mean, of course, people may look at you funny, may call you crazy and ask what you're doing, but, you know, I have an obligation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before I care about what you think. Seriously, I don't have time to be worried about what you think. I have time to be worried about my Allah. Just doing indirect dawah through our actions. And inshallah. Well, sisters need to take a little bit more precaution, about praying in public. A little bit more precaution, because sisters are a little bit more vulnerable. So I would take that into precaution. I wouldn't advise sisters to go praying in the middle of the park and stuff like that. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam actually authentically, one of the truth, said the best place for prayer for a woman is in her home. That's realistic. He said the best place for prayer for a woman is in her home because that's her sanctity and her safeguard. The best place to pray for a man is in the masjid. Or for a sister, if you can't make it home, you can't go there to pray in public, but have a little more discretion about concealing yourself. Having a discussion with a friend or partner intending for non-Muslims to hear. We used to use this a lot when I lived in New York and DC. You get on the subway and you and a sister or you and a brother start talking about something, a little bit louder than you would normally talk, just to catch people's attention, Like you bring up the issue of Tawheed and, isn't it so amazing that, Allah, the one true creator, created this whole world and made us a bird, just talking a little bit louder. People are going to listen, especially if you look like a Muslim. Oh yeah, they will listen. Oh yeah. Listen, everything you say. But that's good. They should listen. They're going to be interested. Perform the acts of worship in public, like prayer in the airport, foot in the sink. All of you, how many of you caught your foot in the sink? Yeah, you caught your foot in the sink. That's dawah, foot in the sink. Having a picture of the Kaaba, like if you work in a cubicle. Some people are like, oh, we're not allowed to do direct dawah at our job, So what can I do? I know some brothers who have, pictures of the Kaaba as their screensaver. They have Islamic calendars up and ornaments, and people come and ask them, what is this? What is this stuff? If they ask you, you have the right to answer. That's an inalienable right of free speech. They ask you have the right to answer. You can answer and keep on and on and on and on. Nobody can tell you you can't do that. Somebody can tell you can't do that, you need to let them know you've gone beyond your limit. You've encroached your boundaries. There's one story about a sister who took Shahada. She said she was in the airport. And there were 3 men. She said there were 3 Arab men with beards sitting at the airport. And one of them kept looking at his watch. And then he looked at the other 2. And he said, it's time. And they got up and they went to the bathroom. So the woman was like, I was freaking out. I'm looking for TSA, I'm looking for security. She said, then they came back and she's like, I'm watching them, I'm ready to jump on one of them. And she said, interestingly enough, 1 stood in front and 2 stood behind them, and they started praying. And that caught her attention. She was like, oh, they're going to pray. So it really stuck in her mind, and she eventually went and searched about Islam, and she took her shahada, just because of this incident. And then there's another one, about doing things like this. There was a young man who was coming out of a Dawah event. And it was pouring down rain outside. And there was a woman who was coming out of another hallway right before him. And he had an umbrella, and she didn't. And so he gave her his umbrella. And they argued for a moment, like, he's like, no, you take the umbrella, I'll be fine. And he put his coat over his head, and he went out and got so wet. And the woman was so thankful about this that she wanted to repay him a gift, because they were classmates. So she knew he was from Jordan, so she went and looked up and tried to find something to give him special, and the topic of Islam came up in her search. And so she started studying Islam, this and that, and the other. And she eventually took her shahada. before she ended up giving me his umbrella back. So she said, finally when I gave him his umbrella back, I was wearing a hijab and he was shocked. She was like, here's your umbrella, and oh, by the way, I accepted Islam. You know, so that little bit of kindness, and then they got married. Don't start running around with umbrellas, brothers. It's not going to work for you. Might not work for you. But, you know, it just shows how things can happen. You never know what you can do. Leaving pamphlets on trains and bus seats, bus stations, doorsteps, hotel rooms, doctor's office, etc. within legal limits. I do not say it will break the law and litter. But leaving them where it's applicable to leave them. You know, like public places where things are allowed to be posted. Put things up about Islam. Sure, why not? Doctor's offices. If you go to the doctor, you know, they have those magazines at the table. Get an Islamic magazine, put it there. You know, I used to get up when I used to take the subway in New York. I would get up from my seat and I would drop a pamphlet. Every time I did, I would get up, I would set a pamphlet wherever I was sitting. Because the next person has to pick it up when they sit down. Then they're going to pick it up, they're going to look at it. It was just a habit I had. Bumper stickers, etc. How to approach people. If you have a dawah table directly, in street dawah, the approaches are very straightforward, direct. What is the purpose of life? When it comes to street dawah, do you guys do street dawah? You should have like a monthly street dawah session. You know, where you just get a group in teams and you go 3 here, 3 there, and 3 there, and just start talking to people on the streets. Get out there into the public. Let people see you. Let people know you're here. Let people know that you're here for good. After a while, they'll start getting used to seeing you. They'll start getting used to seeing you. You should have the right dawah set up. Street dawah. But what about in an elevator in a store? How? What are their ways to strike up a conversation? What I mean by that is, you know, if you're in an elevator, you have a very short amount of time. You need to be able to know how to strike up a conversation very quickly and catch someone's attention. Like for instance, excuse me, do you mind if I tell you the purpose of life in 4 words? That's intriguing. Man, people have been debating the purpose of life for a millennium. You're going to tell me in 4 words? Yes. To worship your Creator. To worship your Creator. Now, if you would like some more information about that, you know, if you have time right now, I can give it to you. If not, have a pamphlet ready, have something else ready. You know, this is just how you go about it. And if you're behind somebody in the store or something, you only have a few minutes, so you need to be quick. The name game, using the word Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, teaching them just what Allah means. Just the word Allah, explaining the word Allah, how it means the God. That, and I'm going to leave it off with this. That, like for instance, God and Allah are not the same. And I teach this to people. That there is a word for God in Arabic. What is it? Ilah. Ilah means God, means something that is worshipped. What can be an ilah? Anything. I can take this cup of Nero, it's good, and I can put it on a pedestal and put candles around it and give it, ibadah and worship. I can turn it into an ilah. You think that's crazy? I mean, the Sahaba said we used to make our gods out of dates, and then when we get hungry, we just eat it. This was their ignorance. So yeah, I can make this an ilah, and I can worship. Anything that I give worship is a god for me. It is an ilah, but it can never be Allah. It can never be Allah. Allah is the God, the one only that has the right to be given worship. This is why He's Al-Ilah, Allah, the God, because He is the only one that has the deserving capabilities of being worshipped. Everything else that is worshipped is false gate. Does that make sense? This is what I explained to them. So just explaining the word Allah is a da'wah. It's a big time da'wah. You know, and just saying the God. The God. Rather than saying God, I say the. If I use the word God, I like to say the God. And they'll ask me why. You know, why are you saying the God? You know, there was a movie that once talked about that. There was a man, one of the guys who established the CIA in America. You know, whenever they refer to the CIA, they always say CIA. People who work in the CIA will never use the CIA. They will use CIA. We at CIA. They would never use the. And then one guy established it, was like, if you want to know why we don't use the word the in front of the CIA, then you need to ask why you don't use the word the in front of God. And that was very interesting. When actually you should use the in front of God. But this is their concept. Is that God, and that's a very, very weird, the meaning behind it is so deep in